Clark was great in her appearance with Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird during the national championship game, which started with Diana Taurasi calling back to her infamous "reality is coming" comment. Of course, the reality was that Clark was great in the WNBA.
When Caitlin Clark appeared on the Bird and Taurasi show during the NCAA championship game, basketball fans went crazy. The rookie superstar, who was expected to receive a reality check from Taurasi, completely turned the script by sitting next to the WNBA legend, who couldn't stop gushing over her and exuding confidence.
Excited to learn from her, honestly.
Top season. There was the viral picture that went around showing off your guns. Everyone's wondering, have you been hitting the weight room? Was it the camera angle? What happened there?
How did you do that?
I've been trying to do that for 20 years.
AI is getting out of control. Come on. But no, I mean,
it was like
honestly,
that. Remember when that Alex Caruso picture came out?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was ripped. Yeah.
Clark gave advice on everything from her better body to South Carolina's defense, and Diana virtually begged him for coaching advice. Diana Taurasi warned Caitlin Clark that reality would set in once she joined the WNBA, and we have every embarrassing moment to prove how the roles have completely changed. The discomfort was exquisite.
Come out, they're waiting for him. I mean, Camilla's coming, Caitlin's coming, there's more than just that are coming. What will the league have in store for them when they get there?
Look, SVP, reality is coming.
Okay.
There's levels to this thing.
Apparently, that reality consists with a much-anticipated interview during the NCAA Women's Championship game between UConn and South Carolina, in which Taurasi was frantically trying to book Clark for ratings while practically swooning over her. Gave Clark the awkward tension we all hoped she would have after her record. When Clark first arrived on the set, you could sense that the power dynamic had changed. This was not a rookie submitting to a legend. Rather, it was the new face of women's basketball politely sharing the spotlight with someone who obviously underestimated her. The best part is that Clark didn't have to say a word about it. Her presence, her poise, and her insights spoke for themselves. Breaking Rookie season joined Sue Bird and Taurasi on their show completely unfazed by sitting next to the woman who once so dismissively doubted her.
Guys, we're going to come back on Sunday. We're here for the final. We've got Caitlin Clark joining the show. This will be Caitlin's second time.
Yeah.
So it'll be nice to have her back as a pro. She was a college kid.
She was a college kid.
When Clark returned to the show as a professional rather than a college player, Taurasi set the tone right away with what appeared to be a veiled admission of her earlier remarks. The interview started out with some light-hearted banter until things became serious. Caitlin's grown son Caitlin's wonderful boy, is Caitlin's incredible the same? The irony was sharp enough to cut with a knife, especially considering that Taurasi's Phoenix Mercury defeated Clark's Indiana Fever 4-0 the previous season. Diana Taurasi, who couldn't even bother to give Clark a thoughtful response when asked about her before the draft, warned her about reality with all the smugness of someone who simply knew this college hotshot would struggle against grown women. However, Taurasi never revealed this to anyone watching because she knew the internet remembers everything, and the contrast between Taurasi's prior dismissals and her current praise couldn't be more glaring. The interview was especially fascinating because of how effortlessly Clark handled the basketball analysis. When asked about the championship game they were watching, Clark gave quick, insightful answers that showed how well-versed in the game she was. I was a little excited because I thought the game would be high-scoring from the first 5 minutes, and said, "No defense, this is great." After that, it slowed down a little. I agree with you, G. That South Carolina might benefit from a little full-court press. Why not pick it up a bit and force some turnovers? When asked about her experience playing against South Carolina in the previous year's championship game, Clark provided thoughtful, detailed insights. He even referenced Taurasi's earlier point, calling her G as if they were longtime colleagues rather than rookies and veterans who had publicly doubted her. The conversation took an especially interesting turn when Bird asked Clark about Paige Bueckers' prospects in the WNBA, the very player Taurasi had once emphatically chosen over Clark when asked who she'd pick to start a franchise. There are a lot of different people, so even if one isn't having a good night, it's hard to prepare for that and difficult to stop all of that.
Paige confirmed getting drafted this year. What do you anticipate about her playing in the WNBA?
Oh, she's going to be horrible in the WNBA. She might not even make a roster.
You know, she's going to have a hard time making a roster.
There's levels to this.
There's levels to this. I mean, look, she's an incredible talent.
Clark's response was both kind and wise, and I believe that one of the best things about her game is that she is mature and poised, and nothing ever seems to faze her. It seems like everything comes at you so quickly when you're moving to a new city, trying to understand new teammates, and having a new coach while you're trying to live up to all these expectations.
American Airlines, because I think Paige has that type of draw. Like, she'll be able to bring those type of fans in. I know we're playing there, one of our games. Hopefully the other one gets moved too. We would appreciate that, Dallas Wings, if you can move the other one.
She went on to provide a technical analysis of Burr's game, pointing out that she can score from all three levels, finishes well around the rim, has some of the best mid-range play I've ever seen, and can obviously shoot from three-point range. This careful, in-depth analysis contrasted sharply with Taurasi's contemptuous, "I'm taking Paige." One response to the following question from a year ago demonstrated true basketball analysis, while the other appeared to be biased. The topic of conversation eventually shifted to Coach Gino Arama and Clark's experiences playing against his UConn teams. Once more, Clark offered insights that demonstrated her elite basketball IQ. "I believe that when I play against his teams, they always have some of the best scouts against me. He adds more tactical detail and understand the game. Obviously, having Nika Mule last year, she's probably one of the better defenders I've faced. She's just up in your grill and will pick you up 94 feet. This level of specific technical analysis showed that Clark is not only a great player, but also a student of the game who comprehends the strategic elements at an elite level. Perhaps the most telling part of the interview was when Taurasi asked Clark about the upcoming WNBA season and the Fever's off-season acquisitions. "On paper, we have a really good team, but, we only have training camp starting on the 27th, and then we have back-to-back preseason games on the 3rd and 4th of May, so you have a very short amount of time to put that together and 7 new players." Clark's response demonstrated both her basketball knowledge and her leadership. She went on, "What we needed was we added a lot more experience. Whether we carry 11 or 12, that's more than half of our roster. We simply lacked that in the playoffs because we were a young team. Kelsey Mitchell, for example, hasn't really had the chance to participate in many playoff games because she has played for the Fever her entire career. So having that, whether it's Sydney Carlson or DB, I think having that experience is going to be really good for us and that leadership in the locker room," said Dyrus Dantas, whether it's Natasha Howard or someone else. This wasn't just a player talking about her team. It was a franchise cornerstone discussing roster construction, team chemistry, and playoff preparation like a veteran remember. The interview took an interesting turn when Taurasi brought up the viral photo of Clark's improved physique. He asked her jokingly if she had been hitting the weight room, and she admitted that she had been trying to do that for 20 years. Clark confidently explained, "Honestly, trying off-season working on your game, trying to get stronger, like a lot of time in the weight room. And it's like something I kind of enjoy, so it's been pretty easy for me to spend time in there and really work on that part of my game." She then turned her attention to the basketball implications of her physical development. "The biggest thing on the court is that I got really uncomfortable in that mid-range area when I would enter it, whether it was because I didn't have a floater or because I didn't like taking mid-range jump shots. I'm trying to improve my game by becoming more at ease when I get my feet kind of into the paint." When asked about her physical transformation, Clark immediately linked it to specific basketball skills she's developing, so her focus remains entirely on improving her game. This gracious response highlighted Clark's maturity and respect for the game's history, even when given the opportunity to subtly reference her success against the veteran who had doubted her. Taurasi, seemingly trying to maintain some semblance of her earlier skepticism, asked Clark about dealing with false narratives and finishing through contact and little things like that. This response perfectly illustrated the difference between Clark and many other players. One of the hardest things for you as a professional these days is hearing all the stories about your team not getting along and having to just deal with it, ignore it, and deal with it even though you know it's untrue. This is especially true when it comes to reports that the Fever squad didn't get along. Clark's response was measured and thoughtful. "I think it's something you kind of just get used to is like people think they know what's going on inside your locker room, and they just don't at the end of the day." She continued, The best thing about last year is like we honestly had so much fun together, she said. Yeah, we lost our first 8 games or whatever, but like we wouldn't have one if we didn't have a tight-knit circle or a good locker room, and that's the reason we kind of turned everything around. Throughout the interview, Clark maintained the ideal balance of confidence, humility, and basketball intelligence. She never specifically mentioned Taurasi's previous dismissals of her, but her accomplishments and insights spoke for themselves. There is no greater contrast between the two. Even the way Clark responded to a question about her competitive nature showed her self-awareness. When asked about winning at everything, she said, I think kind of similar to the situation in Indiana. You're right, they already have really good players. It's just like, can you kind of come in there and help them put it all together? Clark always takes the high road, concentrates on basketball, and encourages those around her. Taurasi, for all her greatness as a player, came across as someone who was still struggling to accept that she might have been mistaken about Clark. The allusion to Dallas and the predicament of Paige Bucker demonstrated Clark's magnanimity in sharing the limelight, and by the end of the interview, one thing was quite clear. She was recognizing other players' strengths, something her critics could possibly benefit from. Simply by being herself, knowledgeable, gracious, and confident, Caitlin Clark demonstrated why she has become the face of women's basketball. The reality that she faced wasn't the humiliating experience that Taurasi had foreseen. Rather, it was one in which she not only succeeded but flourished, meeting but surpassing expectations, and compelling even her most contemptuous critics to acknowledge her greatness, sometimes on their own shows. Viewers couldn't help but notice the irony of the situation as the championship game went on in the background. Diana Taurasi, who had previously surreptitiously warned Clark about reality, was now sitting next to her, complimenting her and even asking for her basketball knowledge if there was any question about who needed whom in this dynamic. The viewership figures speak for themselves. Clark's participation in the championship game the year before drew record crowds. Perhaps the most rewarding aspect of this whole story is that the player who was meant to receive a reality check ended up becoming the reality that the whole women's basketball ecosystem now revolves around. And the broadcast this year needed Clark as a guest just to keep viewers interested. The hallmark of a true star is that they don't need to bring down others in order to elevate themselves. They can sit next to a player who doubts them without feeling the need to score points or settle scores. Clark never had to say, I told you, so she didn't have to bring up Taurasi's 0-4 record against her. She also didn't have to mention the reality is coming comment or the dismissive, I'm taking Paige, next question moment. Someone who knows that the best form of retaliation isn't even speaking, but rather succeeding so completely that your detractors are compelled to commend you on their own platforms. As the interview came to an end, Clark offered insightful commentary on pick-and-roll coverages and disclosed her favorite referee. The last impression of Lisa, Mattingly, wasn't one of a rookie bowing to the greats. Rather, it was of a peer, possibly even the new standard-bearer for the sport, politely sharing her knowledge with those who came before her. Reality has arrived, but it's not the one Taurasi had anticipated. Instead, the roles have completely reversed, with Taurasi now practically pleading with Clark for his basketball knowledge on her own show. Caitlin's incredible 180-degree turn in sports history shows that she doesn't need to be petty to get her point across. Clark never once referenced defeating Taurasi's squad for the Manafort of next question dismissal. Please share your opinions below if you like seeing this power shift unfold in real time. Don't forget to press the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for more awkward WNBA reunions. Was Clark's handling of this flawless, or did she need to twist the knife?